A gruesome murder rocks a small Wisconsin town.
This guy is laying there, naked on the floor. He shot, he stabbed.
A community is shocked by murder and by the man behind it.
He blows any profiler's theories of who could commit this.
Then, across the country in California, someone murders a helpless old woman at a retirement community.
The brutality of it, it made no sense.
Soon, a second violent murder.
The person that did the first one very likely did the second one.
A serial killer targeting old people.
It could have been anybody at that point.
When the cold-blooded killer is finally exposed, everyone's surprised.
Here we have a person that's just bad.
August 2nd, 2003. In the little town of Wolf River, Wisconsin, Shirley Kapitsky is worried. She hasn't heard from her son Glenn in several days.
I would say he talked to us almost every day on the telephone.
Glenn Kapitsky is an eccentric loner, struggling with bipolar disorder.
He had to be on medicine all the time.
Shirley drives to his house on a remote dead-end road.
I turned the light on, and here he was lying on the floor.
Glenn is dead, lying naked in a pool of blood.
I ran and called 911.
Investigators quickly determine Glenn has been brutally murdered. He's been stabbed once in the heart, twice in the back, and shot in the head. But who would want to see Glenn Kapitsky dead?
Didn't appear to be any kind of burglary or robbery of any sort. Just very unusual, just no motive at all.
The place is a mess, but no valuables are missing.
I really had to wonder, did we have somebody out there, or a couple people that were committing house invasions and were forced to murder Glenn Kapitsky to escape?
The crime scene doesn't reveal much.
We didn't find any fingerprints. We didn't find any trace evidence.
We've got no fingerprints, no shell casings.
In fact, the only thing missing appears to be Glenn's keys.
A lot of times people who commit crime take trophies. And with the keys being missing, it was, to us, a signal that somebody took a trophy.
When word of the murder gets out, people are stunned. Homicides are virtually unknown in Wolf River.
Everybody knows about it, and everybody has to wonder, what do we have living in our midst?
When Aishin questions Glenn's neighbors, she gets her first working clue.
I saw a car moving very slowly down the street.
2 nights before the murder, a neighbor saw a car he didn't recognize. The driver was flashing a large spotlight.
It's customary to do what we call shining deer. It's fun to go out with a flashlight or a spotlight and look at the big bucks eating in the field.
It's an illegal local sport, but this car wasn't shining deer. It seemed to have a different target.
You saw this vehicle go down to Glenn's, and it spent 2 to 3 minutes there shining the house. And then they pulled out and left.
Why would the car spotlight Glenn's house? It was too dark to see the car clearly. But the neighbor gives Aishin a partial description of the car.
Well, it was one of those older boxy types.
He said it was a large, boxy type, older model car with long rectangular taillights. I thought this vehicle was very suspicious. My theory was that Glenn was a target.
But the car's description is too broad to do much with. And other than the car, the detective has no motive, no evidence, no suspects.
This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a robbery that went awry.
A total mystery.
But 2 days later, Aishin gets a new tip. A neighbor says Glenn had a crush on a married woman who lives nearby.
Glenn wanted female companionship very bad. He was infatuated.
Detectives learn he left magazines as gifts on the woman's porch.
She was very upset. She was very, wow, what is this? Why is he interested in me? And she felt very uncomfortable with it.
Did the woman's husband take offense and react violently?
Don't you leave that kind of stuff on my doorstep! I'm sorry.
The husband quickly becomes a suspect.
We thought that maybe Glenn made an inappropriate comment or something, and that this was a revenge killing.
Detective Aishin tries to question the couple. They moved away before the murder. But did the husband come back to punish Glenn?
We were thinking, was there more to just the magazine on the step? Was he being a window peeper? Was he harassing these people because they did move away?
But when they finally make contact with the couple, detectives find no evidence to link them to Glenn's murder.
They said yes, that they were uncomfortable with him. It wasn't the reason that they moved, they just bought a bigger house. But they were happy to be out of his community. They didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Hoping to find a new suspect, detectives check further into Glenn's background. Though he didn't drink, he did hang around bars. In fact, he was last seen alive at a riverfront tavern called the Slipknot. Bar patrons share a story that Aishin jumps on. A few months ago, they saw Glenn covered in blood.
Look, I've been beat up!
He went into the bar, made that statement, and left. And we thought, okay, he has an enemy. We think we're on to a good lead.
But her lead soon dissolves.
Going back to talk to his mother, no, he did that for a joke. He liked being in plays. He had put on makeup or red dye on a shirt to draw attention to himself.
The Slipknot is one of Glenn's favorite haunts. As detectives look harder at the bar regulars, a promising new suspect suddenly emerges.
Well, I've got a pretty good idea who did it.
An elderly newspaper delivery man, Bud Hobart, tells Aishin he knows who the killer is.
It's really going ballistic on this kid.
He reported that a gentleman who lived about a mile down the road from Glenn had killed Glenn.
Hobart says Glenn and a man named Walter Daniels had an argument the day Glenn was killed. It started in the Slipknot, then moved outside to the parking lot.
You afraid? You afraid of that?
Glenn appeared to be afraid, got in his car and left, and this guy followed him.
Oh, yeah? I'll teach you.
Hobart was suspicious, so he followed both their cars.
He said that, wow, this is, something big. He wanted to see what was going on.
Hobart pulled off the road before he was noticed, but he's sure the argument resulted in Glenn's murder. Detective Aishin is skeptical until she checks the background of the man Hobart names, Walter Daniels.
The suspect had some domestic violence. His wife was afraid of him and had a restraining order. So we have a personality that is capable.
Daniels doesn't ease Aishin's suspicions. When she goes to his house, Daniels won't let her in.
Do you mind if we go inside for a moment, Mr. Daniels?
Why don't we talk right here?
But the odds on this new suspect drop rapidly. Bud Hobart's story is filled with holes. When Aishin checks out the fight between Daniels and Glenn Kapitsky,
So on the night of the murder, did any of you witness the large fight between Daniels and Glenn?
I didn't see any fight here that night. No.
Every time we came back to him, he changed his story. And he was making facts fit what he believed happened.
Glenn jumped in his truck.
Hobart is making up the entire story. It's all part of a small-town feud.
This is just a continual battle between the two. And what a not nice thing to do is accuse someone of murder.
Another promising suspect, gone.
Well, at first we're all happy and excited because we had so little evidence and our balloon kind of got busted.
There are only 1,200 people in town. It seems like finding suspects should be easy. Someone must know something about Glenn Kapitsky's murder. But no one comes forward. Aishin needs help. And she's about to get some. Glenn Kapitsky, an eccentric loner, has been murdered in a small Wisconsin town. There doesn't seem to be any motive for his killing. Evidence is scant, and Sheriff's Detective Sherilyn Aishin is coming up empty-handed.
It's on the fast track to becoming a cold case.
Aishin asks for help. Special Agent Kim Skorlinski of the Wisconsin Department of Justice steps in.
Absolutely. I think that would be good.
He's as baffled as everyone else.
This guy is laying there, naked on the floor, no money. He shot, he stabbed. Why somebody would do that was just really puzzling.
How was he behaving the weekend of the murder?
Oh, real strange.
Aishin and Skorlinski refocus their efforts at the Slipknot, the bar where Glenn Kapitsky was last seen alive. Once again, there's a story.
More than one person told us that an individual that lives across the street from the Slipknot bar killed Glenn.
The man's name is Mark Pillow.
The weekend that Glenn was murdered, This individual was acting crazy, crying all the time, said he was in big trouble.
Damn it!
This guy is out of control and had made some comment about doing something bad.
The investigators check with Pillow's boss.
He says, I think he killed that Glenn Kapitsky. So now we have more people saying that he did this.
When they question him, Pillow jumps to the top of the suspect list.
So, did you know the murder victim, Glenn Kapitsky?
Yes, I did.
Pillow actually demands a polygraph test.
Right now, I'll prove I didn't do it.
The suspect was absolutely hysterical. Said, I didn't kill this guy. I'm hearing all the rumors that you think I did it.
Before they can even give Pillow the polygraph test, investigators get a new lead. It comes from a jailhouse snitch.
I killed a man once. Never seen a man look like that.
An individual that was currently in jail said that one of his cellmates stabbed someone and the individual is dead. We didn't have that many homicides in just Glenn Kapitsky, so we're assuming, okay, now we have a new suspect.
At the time of Glenn's murder, the inmate was in Wisconsin Rapids, about 90 minutes away from Wolf River. He's now in jail for breaking parole on an original charge of sexual assault.
A lot of times these guys will start talking in jail and or prison.
2, 3, 4, dead.
They make comments about things they did. Sometimes it's bragging, sometimes it's truthful.
When they investigate the inmate, he too becomes a suspect.
We do surveillance on his house. We find out that he has a light-colored car, boxy, older, with rectangular taillights.
Exactly like the car that was checking out Glenn Kapitsky's house days before his murder.
So now we're on to another person that has a vehicle matching the description.
But the car is all they've got. There's nothing else that can possibly tie him to Glenn.
We have a person with some attributes or some qualities or information that fits our profile here, but we can't make the leap to the victim.
The inmate goes on a back burner. Meanwhile, Mark Pillow, their lead suspect, finally takes his polygraph test.
Did you know Glenn Kapitsky?
Yes.
All eyes are on him and on the polygraph's needle.
Did you know that Glenn Kapitsky was murdered?
Yes, but I didn't murder him.
Sir, yes or no answer. I will ask the question again.
He's extremely nervous. He's just trembling, basket case. I think he's guilty.
Investigators begin to think they've got their guy, but to everyone's surprise, Mark Pillow passes his lie detector test with flying colors.
We're never going to eliminate him based on the polygraph, but we may push him off the table just a little bit. Keep him on the sidelines, see what else we've got out there.
But what they have left isn't much.
We were tracking down lead after lead, and none of them seemed to pan out, which meant that person was still out there. And you know, worrying about, you know, obviously we're worried about, is our community safe? And clearly it's not.
By now, investigators are grasping at straws. They're down to a second tier of possible suspects.
We had another person call and say that he was recently beat up by a local motorcycle gang. He knew of 2 other people that were beaten up, and he thought perhaps that this local motorcycle gang ran across Glenn.
Did Glenn see something he shouldn't have?
And now we're thinking that Glenn witnessed something and was silenced.
But in the end, it's just another wild theory.
I just could not get any link to put this motorcycle gang in the area or even knowing Glenn. That just didn't go anywhere. They're capable, but there was no link.
Then, just when things are looking their bleakest, investigators get the tip no one could have ever imagined.
It's kind of bothering me. Like it's on my conscience.
It's been 5 months since the brutal murder of Glenn Kapitsky in Wolf River, Wisconsin. Police are no closer to solving the case than they were when it happened, and they're feeling the heat.
You always feel pressure anytime you have a murder to take that person out of your community so your community is safe.
Investigators have exhausted every possible lead. Then, out of the blue, they get a tip that sends them in a direction they'd never dreamed of.
Yeah, hi, I'm calling about the...
A 20-year-old college student named Olivia Toma calls the police in nearby Wyowega. She says a local high school boy has confided to her that he's the killer.
Yeah, my friend confessed that he was the murderer, so...
My first reaction is just summed up as, nah. No, that just doesn't sound right.
The high school student Toma names is Gary Hurt, a senior class golden boy.
He's an Eagle Scout. He's on the wrestling team. He has an A average. He's a valedictorian. He was really just an all-American good kid.
Hurt, a 6'3" football star, has a college scholarship locked up. He plans to study criminal justice. Nothing about him makes sense as the killer.
He's on the opposite end of what we would think of somebody that would go in a house and do this to somebody else.
But Olivia Toma has a list of honors to match Gary Hurt's. Described as brilliant, she's enrolled at the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay.
And you go, boy, this just doesn't figure. But you look at that witness and you say, my God, she is so credible. I mean, and cops can smell a credible witness a mile away.
Investigators Sherilyn Eishen and Kim Skorlinski aren't so sure.
She seemed very standoffish to us in the beginning, pretty reluctant to come forward. Here's my written statement, and there was nothing in her statement that she couldn't have read in the paper.
Investigators are ready to dismiss her when she mentions one last detail.
One last thing. Do you by chance know what kind of car Gary drove?
Yeah, of course. It's a Dodge Dynasty.
Gary Hurt owned a 1992 car with long rectangular taillights, just like the ones Glenn Kopitsky's neighbor saw before the murder. Gary Hurt becomes the most unusual suspect yet.
You need to make the call.
Olivia doesn't want to get more deeply involved, but investigators convince her to do a taped phone call with him.
Remember we talked about last...
At first, Hurt acts as if he doesn't know what she's talking about.
I'm not sure. Well, you know that you were talking about that guy that you supposedly killed or something?
Finally, Hurt comes clean and tells the real story about the killing.
Where did you, like, shoot him? In the back of the head? Where'd you stab him?
When he said the magic words, I stabbed him 3 times, that was it right there. There's only people that knew were the people that did the autopsy on the body and the killer. Cheryl and I looked at each other and we go, that's our guy, just like that.
Detectives can hardly believe it. Why would this handsome young man with such a bright future commit murder? When Olivia asks, Hurt's answer is bone-chilling.
Why would you do something like that?
The next morning, investigators question Hurt's friends. They've all heard his gruesome murder story, too.
He bragged about this all the time. He was talking about it like it was nothing.
This is the knife I killed him with.
None of them believed anything that he said. They just thought, you're reading this, you're just a big joker, you want to be the center of attention as usual.
But several kids hear Hurt add a critical detail.
Keys, his souvenir.
He picks up these keys and he said, and these are his car keys. I took them as a souvenir. When we heard that, then we knew this isn't anything made up.
Everything ties together. The confession on tape, the knife, the keys. Gary Hurt is arrested that day.
He's really casual about the whole thing. I mean, he's not one bit concerned about anything.
A search of Hurt's room reveals both the knife with Glenn Kopitsky's blood on it and Glenn's missing keys.
It was a shock. It was like unbelievable.
He was a perfect kid on the outside. He was pitching and helping in the community. He was nice to people, you know, A student. He blows any profiler's theories of who could commit this.
Finally, investigators are certain they have the monster responsible for the murder of Glenn Kopitsky. On July 29th, Gary Hurt and his best friend cruise Glenn Kopitsky's house in Hurt's car. Glenn's neighbor spots them as they drive by.
It's a rural house on a dead-end road, very desolate, very isolated.
He said, this would be a great place to kill somebody and get away with it.
2 days later, Gary Hurt returns to Glenn's house alone and boldly lets himself in. This time, he's brought a loaded shotgun.
He went there on a rainy, stormy night, that when the gunshot is heard, people are just going to think it's thunder.
Hurt sneaks into Glenn's bedroom and confronts him.
Get up! Get up!
He tells Glenn to lay down on the floor.
Get on the floor! Get on the floor!
Glenn Kopitsky pleads for his life.
In a way that even makes Gary Hurt more of a coward. The big strapping Gary Hurt picked on somebody who was about as defenseless as you could ever find in our community.
Hurt shoots Glenn in the back of the head. Then he pulls out his knife and plunges it into Glenn's body.
That is also indicative of somebody inexperienced. They don't realize that the shotgun blast to the head was enough. They just wanted to make sure.
Before he leaves, Gary Hurt checks out the house.
He did say, I looked through his wallet and I didn't find anything, so I took his car keys.
Gary Hurt wanted to pull off the perfect murder, and he might have gotten away with it if he'd kept quiet.
It's truly, he's a murderer. He's a sociopath. Gary Hurt, I have no doubt in my mind, would have continued to kill. Dare I say the word serial killer? I think that's what Gary Hurt was intending to do.
On March 17th, 2005, Gary Hurt is found guilty of murder and is sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Coming up next, a callous killer attacks elderly women in a retirement community. Investigators soon realize this killer is not like any they've encountered before. February 16th, 1994. There's trouble in the serene gated community of Canyon Lake, California. Alice Williams is worried about her neighbor, 86-year-old Norma Davis.
Norma?
Norma lives alone. Alice hasn't heard from her in several days.
Norma! Where are you?
She went in to check on Norma and went up to the loft where Norma usually sits in her recliner to watch television with her Afghan. And it was a very horrific crime scene that she walked into.
Norma Davis is dead. When detectives arrive, they find she's been stabbed 10 times. 2 of her kitchen knives are plunged in her neck and chest. A phone cord ripped from the wall has been used to strangle her.
The brutality of it, it made no sense. It didn't make any sense at all. Things like this don't happen up there.
A lot of force was used. The knife was stabbed so deeply in her. I remember going to the autopsy going, how could they even get it out of her? That's how much force was used.
It was so brutal. The more violent the offense, the closer the relationship to the suspect.
With this much violence, it's probably somebody she knew.
Definitely. There was no signs of forced entry. We didn't see anything that was obviously stolen. Right away, I mean, at least I believed, and I think everybody else believed, that this had to have been somebody that she let in or somebody that she knew.
Forced entry.
Greco and Bentley discovered that the killer may have left a telltale clue. On the dusty entryway, a shoe print of a small Nike sneaker. As they search for more evidence, 61-year-old Helen Niles arrives at the scene.
There's been a murder.
No, who?
The lady who lives in the house.
She is Norma's former daughter-in-law and her caregiver. Investigators note that Niles appears distraught, but she raises their suspicions.
When she arrived at the scene that day, she was wearing Nike shoes. So I started looking at her closer.
I didn't see her yesterday. I brought...
She told us that she had been there the night before and she had dropped off some groceries. But The one thing she said that kind of alarmed us was that she didn't talk to Norma Davis.
Niles tells them she never went upstairs because the TV was blaring and that she assumed Norma had fallen asleep while watching.
It struck me as odd. If you're the caregiver for somebody and you're stopping by to drop off groceries, I would think that you would want to see them face to face and chat with them.
Investigators suspect that Helen Niles may be Norma's murderer, but it goes against everything they know. It's unusual for women to kill so violently.
Usually, women aren't that brutal when they kill. Most female murderers are very sly in how they do it, under-the-table type of murders, like a Black Widow.
Greco isn't ready to eliminate Helen Niles as a suspect, but he adds others to his list.
I was thinking it could have been a gardener, it could have been a maintenance worker, somebody that had access, was working in the area and knew of Norma's habits.
In the days that follow, detectives question Canyon Lake workers.
All right, so at no time in the afternoon you were at Mrs. Davis's house?
No.
How long did it roughly take you to do all the jobs that day?
But nothing stands out.
Out of all those contacts, nothing really just came out and jumped out at us as being suspicious or unusual. These people had alibis.
2 weeks pass. As Greco continues his investigation, Canyon Lake is in an uproar. A brutal crime like Norma Davis's murder is unknown here. Its terrified residents are pressuring the police to find the killer quickly. Among Canyon Lake's fearful is June Roberts, a 66-year-old widow who, like Norma Davis, lives alone.
June, did you forget about the card game?
A concerned friend finds June at home, dead, the victim of another brutal murder.
It's surreal. It's surreal to have seen two violently murdered elderly females within 2 weeks of one another.
Investigators discover significant similarities between this crime scene and that of Norma Davis. June, like Norma, has been killed with an item from her own home. Like Norma, she's been strangled with a phone cord, but instead of being stabbed, her skull has been fractured by a wine decanter.
She struggled and she fought. And I don't think it was easy. I don't think it was as easy for the killer the second time than it was the first time.
Again, there's no sign of forced entry, and nothing of value seems to be missing. Police do find June's purse in the laundry room, open with credit cards strewn on top of the dryer. But they don't believe the killer stole any of the contents.
We had all the earmarks showing the person that did the first one very likely did the second one.
I felt that it was just too coincidental for two elderly females to be killed within close proximity of one another and it not be related.
Greco fears the worst. A serial killer with a hatred of elderly women may be on the loose.
Once there were 2 murders of elderly women in Canyon Lake that was supposed to be secure, Canyon Lake erupted.
Paris Police Department, may I help you?
After June Roberts' murder, the phones were ringing off the wall.
Okay, what did he look like?
Canyon Lake citizens flood the police with tips.
Yes, I realize you're very upset.
So many that a special tip line is created to field them all.
Do you know what he was wearing when you saw him?
Most turn out to be about the innocuous actions of delivery men or unfamiliar neighbors.
Well, hello, ma'am. Yes, I'll go ahead and take your information. A lot of the residents were afraid, and I think that's why a lot of people were calling in anything and everything.
Detectives follow up on as many of the leads as possible. One holds particular intrigue: that a satanic cult is operating in Canyon Lake. Pentagrams have been mysteriously etched on the golf course. Since exactly 2 weeks separated the 2 murders, detectives explore the possibility that Norma and June were victims of ritual slayings.
And this just came to us. Could this be some sort of connection? Is there some sort of cycle that they're on? Could this be tied in with this cult idea? Could this be something that cults are doing every 2 weeks?
Investigators learn, however, that the pentagrams are merely the handiwork of local teenagers experimenting with goth. The cult angle is a dead end. Even though women don't typically commit murders like this, investigators still consider Helen Niles, Norma Davis's caregiver, to be a promising suspect. When investigators discover that Niles lives around the block from June Roberts, their interest soars.
Did you know her?
Oh, very well.
It was definitely suspicious because she knew both victims. She knew them. She wouldn't have to break in to gain access into both residences. These things made her more of a suspect.
Greco's suspicions deepen in the days that follow. Niles, who to this point has willingly cooperated, abruptly stops returning his phone calls.
There were a lot of things that were flashing through our mind by the mere fact that she did not get back to Joe Greco. Did she know a lot more about this than she was telling us?
This is Detective Greco.
Days later, however, Helen Niles finally returns Greco's calls. She cooperates fully. Why had she been unavailable? Greco thinks the death of Norma Davis has consumed her with grief.
It's been really, really hard.
Her reaction was genuine. It was sincere. She was very sad that she lost her ex-mother-in-law. And so it didn't take long before I realized that she wasn't the suspect in this case.
Detectives check off Helen Niles, but they are all out of suspects. And since the murders occurred just 14 days apart, they fear the killer may strike again soon.
It was back to square one. We really didn't have any solid, concrete evidence identifying any perpetrator. We had no clue.
Then suddenly, Greco gets a crucial lead that sends him on the trail of a shocking suspect. But can he catch the killer before another victim dies? 3 weeks have passed since the brutal murder of Norma Davis. 1 week since the subsequent murder of June Roberts. Detective Joe Greco fears the serial killer is already targeting another victim.
Afraid that he's gonna strike again, so we gotta get to something quick.
But his search for the elusive killer has stalled.
It could have been anybody at that point. And so it was frustrating. It was really frustrating.
The investigators' worst fears are confirmed. At an antique shop a 5-minute drive from Canyon Lake, the killer strikes again. She attempts to strangle the owner, Dorinda Hawkins, with a rope.
The attacker, very softly, very calmly, and very quietly, just told her to just relax and just let it happen.
Just let it happen. That's when tears started coming down my face because I thought I'd never see my kids again. And I blacked out then.
And she woke up a few hours later. They believed that she was saved because she was wearing a very thick turtleneck sweater at the time that may have cushioned the impact on her neck.
Hawkins now confirms what they've thought all along. The brutal serial killer is a female. Hawkins gives them a description, but they still have no way to identify her. Then Greco gets the break he needs desperately.
Oh, there's been some activity on one of the credit cards?
He learns that a credit card company has alerted June Roberts' family of suspicious activity on a card belonging to June. Although June's purse and a variety of credit cards had been left behind at the crime scene, apparently the killer had stolen at least one.
I was excited because we had additional leads that we could follow up on, and they were numerous because the killer had gone on a shopping spree.
Wow, this is good.
Greco discovers that several purchases have been made at department stores, restaurants, and health spas, totaling thousands of dollars. He follows the paper trail to Temecula, California, 20 miles from the site of the Canyon Lake murders. At a hair salon, a stylist describes the credit card holder, an attractive blonde woman in her late 30s.
I cut her hair. She was blonde. I turned her red.
A white female, approximately 5'2", about 130 pounds, blonde hair. Recently had her hair cut and dyed at that salon to red, and she had a small 5-year-old boy with her.
The description doesn't match Helen Niles, investigators' former suspect.
Is it curly or is it wavy?
I'd say more of a kind of a strong wave.
But the hairdresser's description of the newly dyed redhead does match that of the blonde woman who attacked Dorinda Hawkins in her antique shop.
That's when the pieces of the puzzle really started to come together as far as the female suspect involved in this case.
Greco has little doubt that Hawkins' assailant is the same person who killed Norma and June. Like Norma and June, the killer had tried to strangle Hawkins, but she miraculously survives.
I looked, and that's when the noose, and I did not see it.
The weapon, once again, is an object belonging to the victim.
We knew we were looking for a female, but we just weren't sure which direction to go in.
So Greco seeks a lead from the one person who knew two of the victims, Norma Davis's caregiver, Helen Niles. Perhaps Helen also knows their murderer.
Well, all these murders have been within the same area, and it's the same kind of attack.
He tells Helen all he knows about his new suspect and shows her the police's composite sketch.
Do you know this person?
I asked the caretaker, does this match anybody that you know? She told me that it didn't.
The next day, however, he receives an unexpected call from Helen Niles.
Oh, Helen, yes, it's good to hear from you.
A call that will break his case wide open.
Hi. I just thought I needed to call you back after yesterday.
She reverses herself, saying she believes she knows the identity of the killer.
The picture you showed me yesterday, I think it's my stepdaughter, Dana.
Helen's stepdaughter is a 36-year-old unemployed nurse named Dana Sue Gray. Gray hardly fits the profile of a brutal serial killer. She's attractive, has no criminal record, and comes from an affluent family. But Helen offers Greco one more detail that all but convinces him of her guilt.
She also said that her stepdaughter had recently had her hair cut and dyed red, so everything was starting to line up and match.
Greco wastes no time. He fears Gray may strike again quickly. He orders a surveillance team to tail the newly dyed redhead and seeks a search warrant of her home. The surveillance team follows Gray as she goes about some mundane errands. She visits a bank, then some stores. Later that day, Greco, warrant in hand, is ready to place Gray under arrest.
I believe I told her, I think you know what this is about. You need to come down to the station with me. We need to talk. And I could just see the color just leave her face.
In Gray's home, the police find June Roberts' credit cards and receipts for the charges made on them. They also find a hoard of recently purchased merchandise.
Inside her closet was just a row of brand new clothes. There were bottles and bottles of expensive perfume. There were toys for little boys. There were cowboy boots. It was like Christmas.
Officers also find more than 20 pairs of Nike sneakers, just like the shoe print found at the home of Norma Davis. At police headquarters, Gray calmly denies any involvement in the murders.
So I want you to start telling me the truth about what's going on here.
Gray claims she simply found June Roberts' credit cards.
It was pretty evident early on that we were dealing with somebody that was pretty smart and that it was pretty cool.
I mean, I've been very cooperative.
You'd think a guilty person would be upset. You think an innocent person would be upset. She was just calm. It was just another day in her life.
Yeah, it had to be before noon because
Not only has Gray got June Roberts' credit cards, she claims she found something else, and it's a bombshell.
Well, I found a purse.
Oh, where'd you find the purse?
Over by the Albertsons.
The purse belongs to someone named Dora Beebe. It strikes Greco as odd. So odd, he decides to check it out immediately.
I'll be right back, okay?
So in the middle of the interview, I excuse myself. I get up and I walk out.
Greco checks with two other Riverside County detectives and discovers they're investigating a murder committed earlier that very day.
It's the same deal. It's a woman, older woman, bludgeoned to death with a household item.
The victim is an 87-year-old woman in nearby Sun City. She's been bludgeoned to death with an iron.
I asked him, I said, you know, what's the name of your victim? And he said, Dora Beebe. And Dora Beebe was killed just hours before we did the surveillance on her. Just missed her by hours. It was hard. It was hard to deal with.
Investigators realized that while they had Gray under surveillance earlier that day, Beebe was already dead. Gray cashed one of Dora Beebe's checks and bought merchandise using her credit cards.
Our hearts sunk. I mean, it was just awful.
Investigators can now make sense of Dana Sue Gray's callous string of murders. She chooses easy prey, elderly victims who can't fight back.
The fact that she was female and young and fairly attractive would probably have made it easier for her to get some little old lady to open the door.
Once inside, Gray abruptly attacks, using weapons she finds at the scene.
It was a violent thrill, and it was something that she enjoyed.
When it is over, Gray treats herself to a shopping spree with her victims' credit cards.
There were no real indicators that would really pinpoint why she would do something so heinous, you know, nothing.
She becomes so cavalier that on one occasion, she even takes her little stepson along for the ride.
This little boy was sitting in a car seat while she went in to go strangle and have a very physical, bloody battle with June Roberts, and then she took the boy out for lunch.
The case against her is ironclad.
Here we have a person that's just bad.
To avoid the death penalty, Gray makes a deal. She pleads guilty to 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, and is sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Here. 32-year-old Deneen Lymore, also known as Tracy Privet, was killed. Police did not identify the man who was injured, but 2 people on the scene identified him as Martinez. Tonight, an entire neighborhood is on edge. It's just before midnight in Norfolk, Virginia. 4 kids are in their apartment with their mom. They hear a knock at the door. Before anyone can answer, the door explodes off its hinges. Men with guns flood inside. Shots ring out, screaming, chaos. And in less than 60 seconds, those 4 children watch their entire world collapse in front of them. But here's the thing that'll keep you up tonight. The shooters, they weren't even there for her. They were looking for someone else. Someone who wasn't home. Someone who was hiding while she took the bullets meant for him. And when the smoke cleared and the casket was closed, that same someone wouldn't let her own children say goodbye to their mother one last time. This is the story of Deneen Tracy Lymore, a 32-year-old mother who died for beef she knew nothing about. A woman whose funeral turned into a battlefield. A case where the killers are still walking free, and the man who was supposed to protect her, well, you'll see. Welcome to Shadows of Crime, where we don't sugarcoat the truth and we damn sure don't forget the victims. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from today, because trust me, you're gonna want to be part of this conversation. Let's get into it. Deneen C. Lymore. Most people called her Tracy. She was 32 years old, living in Norfolk, Virginia, trying to make it work like so many other single mothers out there, grinding every single day. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, but she was real. Tracy graduated from Booker T. Washington High School with her diploma in hand and dreams of building something solid for herself. She worked at the Hilton Garden Inn, and according to her coworkers, she never missed a shift. Never called in sick, never slacked off. They described her as lovely, dependable, the kind of person who showed up and did the work without complaint. But her real job, the one that mattered most, being a mom to her 4 kids, Those children were her entire universe. She didn't just love them, she lived for them. Every decision she made, every dollar she earned, every sacrifice she endured was for those 4 kids. Friends say she was the type of mother who encouraged her children's dreams. Whether they wanted to play sports, dive into academics, or explore creative hobbies. She showed up, she supported, she protected. Tracy was strong. Not the kind of strong people throw around casually, actually strong. The kind of woman who faced struggle head-on and kept moving forward because giving up wasn't an option when you've got 4 mouths to feed and 4 futures to secure. She was sweet, too. The type who'd help a neighbor, check in on friends, and make sure everyone around her felt seen. People in her community knew her as someone who valued loyalty above everything else. If you were in her circle, she had your back no matter what. Now let's talk about her relationship. Tracy met a man who went by the name Bambino, and from the outside looking in, they looked perfect together. I'm talking matching outfits, constant social media posts, always together everywhere they went. They were that couple. The ones who seemed inseparable, who posted each other with heart emojis and captions about forever. People around Norfolk knew them as a tight unit. Lovey-dovey doesn't even begin to cover it. They were always holding hands, always laughing, always showing the world how much they meant to each other. Here's the thing, though. Tracy came into that relationship with 3 kids from previous relationships. 3 children who needed a father figure, stability, and love. Bambino accepted that. He stepped into her life knowing she was a package deal. And from what everyone could see, he loved her despite it. But did he love her kids the same way? That's the question nobody thought to ask until it was too late. Together, Tracy and Bambino had 1 child of their own. That made 4 kids total in the household. 4 young lives depending on 2 adults to keep them safe, fed, and happy. On social media, everything looked like a fairy tale. Tracy posted about how blessed she felt, how much she loved her man, how they were a match made in heaven. She seemed genuinely happy, genuinely in love, genuinely hopeful about the future they were building together. She worked hard, she loved harder, and she believed in the life she was creating for her family. But here's what nobody tells you about fairy tales. They don't show you what happens when the cameras turn off. They don't show you the danger lurking just outside the frame. They don't warn you that sometimes the person you trust most can become the reason your world falls apart. Because on July 24, 2023, everything Tracy built came crashing down in the most violent, senseless way imaginable. And the man she loved, the one she posted about, the one she built a life with, he was nowhere to be found when it mattered most. Before we get into what happened that night, you need to understand where this all went down. Because Norfolk, Virginia isn't just any city. It's a place of contradictions. Beauty and brutality existing side by side. Norfolk is home to the world's largest naval base. It houses the North American headquarters for NATO. Military families, historic neighborhoods, waterfront views. On paper, it sounds like the American dream, but flip that coin over and you'll find a different reality. Norfolk has one of the highest crime rates in America. We're talking compared to every community in the country, from the smallest towns to the biggest cities. Your chance of becoming a victim of violent or property crime here, 1 in 18. Let that sink in, 1 in 18. The Berkeley Avenue area where Tracy lived sits in a part of town that residents describe as another world. For decades, this neighborhood has been caught in the crossfire of ongoing disputes between rival groups from the South Side and Huntersville. Generational dysfunction, they call it. Beef that's been passed down like a family heirloom nobody wants, but everybody inherits. Walk through that neighborhood and you'll see the evidence everywhere. Broken glass, empty liquor bottles, drug baggies scattered on the ground, needles in the grass where kids play. One resident who cleans up the area regularly described finding panties, hair weaves, and all kinds of remnants from violence and vice that happens after dark. This is the environment Tracy was raising her 4 children in. This is where she was trying to build a safe, stable home. Nina Hunter, a woman who lives nearby, described what it's like to exist in that space. She said when she heard the gunshots that night, the ones that killed Tracy, she didn't run to the window. She didn't call the police right away. She covered her head and started praying. Heard it? It was like, pow, 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 pow. I just covered my head and started praying. You've done that before. Yes, that's what we do around here, because that's what you do in that neighborhood. That's the survival instinct people develop when gunfire becomes background noise. That's what we do around here, Nina said. We hear it all the time. Think about that for a second. Gunshots are so common that the automatic response isn't shock. It's prayer and ducking for cover. Residents have been begging for help for years. Begging for intervention, for resources, for someone to care enough to break the cycle. But the violence keeps happening, the bodies keep piling up, and families like Tracy's keep paying the price. July 24th, 2023 started like any other night in Norfolk. Hot summer air. Kids playing outside until the streetlights came on. Families settling in for the evening, hoping to make it through another night without hearing sirens. Tracy was home with her 4 kids, just a regular Monday night. Maybe they were watching TV, maybe she was cooking dinner or helping with homework. Maybe they were laughing about something silly one of the kids said. It was supposed to be safe. Home is supposed to be the one place where you can let your guard down, where your children can feel protected from the chaos outside. But in Norfolk, on Berkeley Avenue, safety is never guaranteed. And for Tracy and her children, that night was about to become the worst nightmare they could ever imagine. Because just before midnight, someone came knocking. And when that door opened, hell walked right in. July 24th, 2023, 11:58 p.m. Tracy is inside her apartment on the 1500 block of Berkeley Avenue Extension with her 4 kids and a few other people. It's late, but it's summer. Kids don't have school, bedtimes get pushed back, everything feels normal, safe. Then comes a knock at the door. One of the kids starts moving toward it, probably thinking it's a neighbor or someone they know. But before anyone can ask who's there, before anyone can even reach the handle, the door doesn't just open, it explodes inward. The lock shatters. A frame splinters. And suddenly, men with guns are flooding into the apartment, weapons raised, fingers on triggers. There's no warning, no conversation, no chance to explain or negotiate or beg. They just start shooting. Every adult in that apartment becomes a target. Bullets tear through the air. The kids are screaming, scrambling, trying to understand what's happening, while their ears ring from the gunfire and their hearts pound so hard they can feel it in their throats. Tracy does what any mother would do. She grabs her children and tries to hide them. She's pulling them close, shielding them with her own body, whispering for them to stay quiet, stay down, stay alive. But the shooters find them. They find her, and they pull the trigger. Tracy is hit. The woman who worked every shift, who loved her kids more than life itself, who was just trying to make it through another day in Norfolk. She's shot in her own home, while her 4 children watch. There's another man in the apartment too. A 37-year-old, later identified by witnesses as Martinez. He's hit as well, but somehow, through sheer survival instinct, he manages to escape through a window. Blood trailing behind him, adrenaline keeping him moving, he gets out, but Tracy doesn't. The shooters flee. They disappear into the night as quickly as they came, leaving behind chaos, blood, and 4 traumatized children who just watched their mother get murdered. Neighbors hear the shots. Of course they do. This is Berkeley Avenue, but most of them stay inside. That's the rule. You hear gunfire, you hit the floor and pray it's not your door next. Someone calls 911. Police arrive at 11:58 p.m. to find two victims suffering from gunshot wounds. Tracy is barely clinging to life. Martinez is conscious but bleeding badly. Both are rushed to the hospital. Martinez survives. His injuries are serious but not life-threatening. He'll live to see another day. Tracy doesn't make it. She's pronounced dead at the hospital shortly after arrival. 32 years old, mother of 4. Gone. Her children are left standing in an apartment that smells like gunpowder and blood, trying to process what just happened. Trying to understand why their mom isn't moving, why there are police everywhere, why everything just changed forever in the span of 60 seconds. But here's where this story takes a turn that'll make your blood boil. The shooters? They weren't even there for Tracy. They were looking for Bambino, her man, the father of one of her children, the guy she posted about on social media with all those heart emojis and captions about love and loyalty. They came to that apartment hunting for him. They kicked in that door expecting to find him. They fired those shots intending to hit him. But Bambino wasn't there. Some say he was hiding. Some say he knew something was coming and made himself scarce. Others claim he was just out that night, unaware of the danger heading toward his home. Whatever the truth is, the result is the same. He wasn't there when the shooters came. So when they couldn't find him, when they realized their target had slipped away, they made a choice. They decided to hurt him anyway. And the way to hurt a man who's not there: you take away what he loves, you make him feel the pain, you send a message he'll never forget. So they shot Tracy instead. She died because of beef she knew nothing about, because of enemies she didn't make, because of a conflict that had absolutely nothing to do with her. She was collateral damage in someone else's war. Her 4 children witnessed their mother's murder not because she did anything wrong, but because the man she loved had enemies who wanted revenge. And when they couldn't get to him, they settled for destroying the woman who stood by his side. Think about that. Think about going to bed one night believing you're safe in your own home, and waking up the next morning without a mother, because someone had a problem with your stepdad. The police launched an investigation immediately. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood, interviewed witnesses, collected evidence. They determined quickly that this was a targeted attack, not random violence, not a robbery gone raw. Someone wanted Bambino, and when they couldn't have him, they took Tracy's life instead. But here's the kicker that'll really get under your skin. As of today, nobody has been arrested. The shooters are still out there, still walking free, still living their lives while Tracy's children grow up without their mother. And Bambino? The man whose beef got Tracy killed, well, his response to all of this is about to show you exactly what kind of person he really is. Hold on, let me ask you something real quick. If your beef, your drama, your enemies, your past got someone you claim to love killed, how would you handle that? Would you be out here demanding justice? Would you be cooperating with police? Would you be making sure her kids got the closure they deserve? Or would you make it all about you? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. No sugarcoating. Tell us what you really think. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story is about to get even messier. We're just scratching the surface. Now let's talk about what happened after Tracy died. Because somehow it gets worse. August 7th, 2023. 2 weeks after Tracy was murdered in front of her children. 2 weeks of grief, shock, and unanswered questions. 2 weeks of those 4 kids trying to understand why their mom isn't coming back. Finally, it's time for the funeral, time to say goodbye, time for closure. Except Bambino had a different idea of how things should go. The day before the funeral, there was supposed to be a viewing at the funeral home. A chance for family and friends to see Tracy one last time, to pay their respects, to stand over her casket and say the things they never got to say. Tracy's family showed up. Her father, her cousins, her siblings, and most importantly, 3 of her 4 children. The ones from her previous relationships. The kids who called her mom, who depended on her, who watched her die. They walked up to the funeral home doors. Locked. They knocked. They called. They checked every entrance. Nothing. The doors were sealed shut, and inside Bambino had made it clear Tracy's family wasn't welcome. Her own children stood outside that building, desperate to see their mother one last time, and they were denied. One of Tracy's cousins recorded the whole thing. Her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Y'all see us at the door trying to get in. The two young boys over here, they're her kids. This young lady, that's her kid. And they're not letting us in." The funeral home staff claimed the viewing was over. They even put up a sign. But Tracy's family knew the truth. It wasn't supposed to be over. Bambino had called ahead and told them to lock the doors the moment he saw her family pull up. Why? Because he was angry. Angry that they didn't show up to a candlelight vigil he organized. Angry that they didn't kiss his feet and thank him for being such a great partner. Angry that they dared to grieve on their own terms instead of his. Though he punished them, he punished her children. He used Tracy's dead body as a weapon to settle petty grudges. Tracy's cousin called Bambino directly, begging him to let the kids see their mother. He refused, hung up, didn't care. Those children went home that night without closure, without goodbye, without the chance to see their mom one last time before she was buried forever. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. The next day, the actual funeral, Tracy's family arrived at 11:00 a.m. sharp. The service was scheduled to start at 11:00. They were on time, dressed in black, ready to honor Tracy's memory. They walked up to the entrance, and they were stopped. Funeral home staff physically blocked them from entering, told them to wait outside, and while they stood there in the heat, confused and humiliated, the casket was closed inside. Tracy's family waited. And waited. 16 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Some people gave up and went back to their cars. Others sat on the curb, crying, trying to understand what was happening. This was supposed to be a funeral, not a hostage situation. Finally, around 11:54 a.m., nearly an hour after the service was supposed to start, they were allowed inside. But not in the front, not near the casket. Rows 1 and 2 were reserved for Bambino and his 5 guests. 5 people. That's it. Tracy's entire family. Her father, her siblings, her cousins, her friends, the people who actually knew and loved her, were shoved into rows 3, 4, and 5, pushed to the back like they were strangers at someone else's funeral. And then Bambino got up to speak. He walked to the front of the room, grabbed the microphone, and the first words out of his mouth were, "What's up, y'all? It don't matter. I know y'all don't like me." Not a tribute to Tracy. Not a thank you for coming. Not a single word about the woman lying in the casket behind him. Just petty, childish antagonism directed at her grieving family. That was it. People started getting up. Voices were raised. Tensions exploded. Tracy's cousin stood up ready to fight. And honestly, who could blame her? This man just disrespected their dead family member at her own funeral. Police had to be called in to keep the peace. Cops at a funeral. Think about that. But here's the part that's gonna really blow your mind. Bambino didn't pay for the funeral, not a dime. Tracy's family later revealed that the city provided funds to help cover costs, and her sister and cousin paid the remaining balance. Bambino contributed nothing. He couldn't even afford to buy Tracy an outfit to be buried in. Yet he had the audacity to control everything, to lock out her children, to disrespect her family, to turn her funeral into a circus. He showed up an hour and a half late wearing a wrinkled, unironed white shirt, no suit, no tie, no effort. He didn't arrange for pallbearers, so Tracy's 16-year-old daughter had to step in and help carry her mother's casket. A child had to do the job that grown men should have handled. He didn't hire a pastor, didn't arrange for anyone to sing. Didn't organize prayers or a proper service. It was just him, 4 random people, and a whole lot of disrespect. During the service, while people were trying to honor Tracy's memory, Bambino was caught on camera looking away, having side conversations, completely disengaged. He wasn't mourning. He wasn't grieving. He was performing. After the disaster at the funeral home, Tracy's family held their own repast, a gathering where they could actually celebrate her life, share memories, laugh, cry, and be together without drama. Bambino wasn't invited. Tracy's cousin made that very clear. This was a peaceful family kind of thing, and he wasn't going to mess that up for us like he did the funeral. They ate, they told stories, they cried together. They honored Tracy the way she deserved to be honored, with love, respect, and genuine grief. Meanwhile, Bambino went home and posted on social media like nothing happened. Woke up with a clearer head than yesterday. Now all that matters is my kids and our new journey, not justice for Tracy, not finding her killers. Tracy's family was stunned. He don't even care about who killed his wife, one cousin said. 5 people came into that house and shot her. But all his posts are about us. We're as lost as y'all are. And here's the final slap in the face. Bambino won't let Tracy's family see the baby, the one child he shares with her. He's keeping that baby away from the siblings, away from the grandparents, away from everyone who loved Tracy. He's using that child as leverage, as punishment, as control. And according to Tracy's family, he doesn't even have the baby. He's got the child staying with someone else, while he plays the victim on social media. Tracy's cousin summed it up perfectly. At first, we didn't have a problem with him, but now we don't mess with him either. It's weird and don't make no sense. This man's enemies killed the mother of his child. And instead of seeking justice, instead of protecting her memory, instead of making sure her children were okay, he turned her funeral into a power trip and her death into a social media spectacle. That's not grief. That's narcissism. That's control. That's a man who cared more about his ego than the woman he claimed to love. All right, I need to know what you're thinking right now. If you were one of Tracy's kids, if you watched your mom get shot, then watched her husband block you from saying goodbye at the funeral, could you ever forgive that? Would you even want to? And here's the real question. Do you think Bambino knows more about what happened that night than he's letting on? Because his behavior after her death is raising some serious red flag. Drop your theories in the comments. Don't hold back. And if this story is making you as angry as it's making me, share this video. Tracy's story needs to be heard. Her kids deserve justice. And the only way that happens is if we keep talking about it. Now, let's talk about what happened after the funeral. Because somehow, this man found new ways to be terrible. In the weeks following Tracy's funeral, Bambino cut off her family completely. Tracy's baby, the one child she shared with him, was kept away from everyone. The siblings couldn't see their little brother or sister. Grandparents couldn't hold their grandchild. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all blocked from having any relationship with that baby. And here's the kicker. Bambino didn't even have the baby with him. According to Tracy's family, he placed the child with someone else while he played the grieving widower on social media, so he wouldn't let Tracy's family, people who actually loved her, near the baby. But he was fine leaving that child with a stranger. Make that make sense. Meanwhile, his social media became a performance. Post after post about moving forward, about new journeys, about focusing on his kids. But never once did he mention finding Tracy's killers. Never once did he call for justice. One post made Tracy's family furious. Woke up with a clearer head than yesterday. Now all that matters is my kids and our new journey. Like Tracy was just a chapter that closed. Like her death was an inconvenience he needed to move past. Tracy's cousin responded, "He don't even care about who killed his wife. 5 people broke into that apartment. But all his posts are about us and how we wronged him, because that's what Bambino focused on, not the shooters, not the investigation, not his children's trauma. He focused on how Tracy's family disrespected him, how they didn't show him enough sympathy, how they dared to grieve without centering him. Meanwhile, Tracy's 4 children are left to deal with unimaginable trauma. They witnessed their mother's murder, they heard gunshots, they saw her fall, they smelled the blood. That kind of trauma doesn't just fade. It embeds itself in your nightmares, in the way you flinch at loud noises for the rest of your life. And as of today, nobody has been arrested for Tracy's murder. The shooters are still out there, still free, still walking the same streets. Police continue to urge anyone with information to call the Norfolk Crime Line at 1-800-88-LOCK-YOU-UP. But without cooperation, especially from Bambino, the case has stalled. Here's what keeps eating at people. Why isn't Bambino pushing harder for justice? If your partner was murdered because of your enemies, wouldn't you be doing everything to find out who did it? Instead, he's focused on moving on his new journey, on controlling the narrative. It makes you wonder, what does he know? What isn't he saying? And why does a man whose beef got his partner killed seem so unbothered that her killers are still free? Tracy died for something she had absolutely nothing to do with. She wasn't involved in the beef, she didn't make the enemies, she was just a woman trying to raise her kids and build a life. But she paid the ultimate price because someone else couldn't handle their business like an adult. This happens more than you think. Women caught in the crossfire of men's drama, partners targeted because the real enemy couldn't be found. Innocent people murdered over disputes they never even knew existed. So how do we stop this from happening again? First, if you're in a relationship with someone who has serious enemies, you need to know. You deserve to understand the risks you're taking just by being with that person. Tracy might not have known how deep Bambino's problems ran until it was too late. Second, communities need to break the cycle of retaliation. Every act of revenge creates another victim, another grieving family, another reason for someone else to pick up a gun. It never ends unless someone chooses to walk away. Third, if you see danger coming, if you know someone's being targeted, say something. Warn them. Call the police. Do whatever it takes to prevent another Tracy from dying in front of her kids. And finally, protect the children. Kids who witness violence need immediate help. Therapy, counseling, safe spaces to process their trauma. Tracy's children will carry what they saw for the rest of their lives. The least we can do is make sure they have the support to heal. Gun violence isn't just a statistic. It's real families, real mothers, real children left behind. Tracy's story should be a wake-up call. Because the next time someone decides revenge is worth more than a human life, it could be your family standing at a funeral, wondering why nobody did anything to stop it. Real talk. Do you think Bambino knows who killed Tracy? Because his whole vibe after her death doesn't sit right with me. Drop your theories in the comments, and if you've got a case you want us to cover next, let us know. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this video. Justice for Tracy starts with keeping her story alive. The more people who know what happened, the harder it is for her killers to hide. Let's make some noise, let's get answers. Deneen Tracy Limore was 32 years old, a mother who loved fiercely, a woman who worked hard and showed up every single day for her kids. She died protecting them, shielding them, trying to keep them safe from violence that was never meant for her. Her children are left with trauma that will follow them forever. Her family is left fighting for justice, and her killers, still out there. If you have any information about this case, call the Norfolk Crime Line at 1-800-788-LOCK-YOU-UP. Your voice could be the one that finally brings justice. This is Shadows of Crime. We don't forget. We don't move on. We keep fighting until the truth comes out. Stay safe out there, and remember, justice doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we refuse to stay silent.